Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm going to let people filter into the room as y'all are just coming in. I love how this all works. This session, I am so excited. When we were planning the Vet Summit this year, there was one session that I wanted to have, and I wanted to really focus on all of these changes in the hiring space and the great resignation and quiet quitting and all of these things that are really transforming not just individual careers but transforming HR departments. I mean, this stuff is becoming a larger trend. And I really wanted someone who could speak to that and could explore that on your behalf, because I think it's really important that you guys know what's going on in the HR department so that you can navigate that proactively and not just as a reaction to something that might be going on. So we found Jessica Fiesta George. I am so excited to hear exactly what she's going to say. She's going to tell you all about her and her podcast, and then dive into this huge subject about what is really going on in the career landscape. So, Jessica, welcome.
Thank you so much. And hello, everyone at Recon Network. Thank you so much for joining. And thanks, Jordana, for hosting such an awesome event. I appreciate all of you guys joining this session. I know we had a little bit of a break, so hopefully you guys are jazzed up as I am. If you were in the service, I do want to take time out to say thank you for your time and for your sacrifice. And if you are a military spouse, thank you too for your patience and your sacrifices. So my name is Jessica Fiesta George, and today I'm going to talk to you about the rock and roller coaster that's impacting our career landscape today. So when I was thinking of putting this session together, originally, if you look at the itinerary, it says the 4 R's or the great R's impacting. Well, who doesn't love a good roller coaster? So I thought, a great roller coaster kind of equates to what is happening in the workforce today. So the thrill of every turn, the upside down circles, the speed, the jolt of adrenaline, and the buzz that you get from just riding on a roller coaster. I think that is the feeling that you get when you think about what companies are actually going through right now in the workforce. So earlier today, if you were able to catch Matt's keynote, he had what he called the 3 killer bees. Well, I have the great R's. So we're going through the whole gamut of the alphabet today. But we're going to talk about the great R's that are impacting today's career landscape. And I changed it to the rock and roller coaster because, like I said, twists, turns, speed, and acceleration. So before we get started, just wanted to kind of introduce myself. So this is my first Recon Network event, and I'm so happy that I got invited to join. I have over 15 years of talent acquisition experience, actually closer to 20, but when I say I have over 20 years, I kind of feel old. So I don't like to put myself yet in that bucket, but yes, pushing on 20 years of experience. But I currently live in Pensacola, Florida. So if you guys are in the Navy, you probably know where I'm at. I'm at the home of the Blue Angels. I am a Navy brat. My dad served in the military before he passed away. And that's kind of what landed us here in Pensacola. So I fell in love with this area and definitely probably won't move. I love to invest in real estate. So if you come to this area, I have a new Airbnb. I would love to host you. And as Jordana mentioned, I host a podcast. So that is another side hustle of mine. I do host a podcast called Just Get Hired. So a play on my name, but just started that during the pandemic. I was getting bored and needed to find something to do. And I was giving so much advice to all of my friends and family about how to write a resume and how to do an interview, because the pandemic kind of pushed us to where if you never had to go look for a job, you were kind of like wondering what was going to happen next, because everyone was kind of forced to stay at home. So we're going to go over a little bit about how the pandemic has also impacted this crazy roller coaster ride that we're on right now. My day job, though, is I am a talent acquisition advisor for a private equity firm called Atlantic Street Capital Advisors. So I come to you today kind of both on my podcast side, I'm helping job seekers, but on the advisory side, I help about 20 different companies with their talent acquisition process. So we have a number of different companies throughout the United States, and we are always hiring. I couldn't go through all of the jobs that we have available, but I support 20 different logo companies. So if you check out Atlantic Street Capital and look at our portfolio, you'll see a lot of brands that you're probably familiar with. And if you see an opportunity, I would be happy to introduce you to the right people. I'm a mom. I'm a foodie. I'm a actress. I love to shop. I call myself an occasional fitness geek because I do love to work out, and I kind of lost my crew when it comes to doing Spartan races. And I know a lot of you guys in the military and girls in the military don't mind getting a little dirty. So if you want me on your team and you want to go do a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder, I'm in. And a lot of people ask me, okay, Fiesta, Jessica Fiesta George, what is that about? Is that like a stage name? What is that? Nope, my real name is Fiesta. That was my maiden name, so I kind of kept it. So Jessica Fiesta George. They call me the Chief Fun Officer for all of my friends and family. So I don't know. I guess it kind of comes with the territory. So that's enough about me. So you guys came here to listen about the great roller coaster. So we're going to go through some of the things that have just happened within the last 2 to 3 years since the pandemic that have been impacting the workforce. So that is the Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle, the restructure, and now we're kind of in that phase of the Great Regret. So every time you open LinkedIn or you watch the news, there's always a lot of different companies that you find that are doing a lot of rounds of layoffs. And I know a few of you have reached out to me on LinkedIn that were also impacted by layoffs, or you have friends or family that have been impacted as well. Well, despite the influx of companies that are laying off their workers, there are a lot of companies that are also struggling to hire people for their open jobs. So, why is that? Well, employees expressed a greater desire for them to have greater autonomy. Everyone's looking for more flexibility. People want more benefits and better working conditions. So during the pandemic, a lot of people who were able to work remotely discovered that we could do a lot of things at home, and commuting to the office really wasn't feasible anymore. So a lot of people who felt that way want to kind of, keep that going. So that is kind of what led to the Great Resignation. So the Great Resignation, everyone was looking for, I need to get paid more. Everything is starting to cost a lot more. So what can I do to kind of jump ship and find something else? I need something that's more fulfilling. I need more flexible work options because now, you know what? My kids are at home. I need to learn how to take care of them here while also working remotely. People wanted a place where they felt included, that their voice matters, that their job is just as important. Everyone was kind of put into different buckets. I know for me, I was considered non-essential during the pandemic, so I ended up getting furloughed. So there was a lot of people that were like trying to feel the same way, what other opportunities can I have where I would also feel important. So a lot of people just wanted to kind of figure out what was next for them. And so they decided, let's take the risk and let's go ahead and just quit and see what else is out there. Well, the Great Resignation, it contributed to a large number of employees who left their jobs voluntarily to pursue other opportunities. And according to a survey, the wave of people who wanted to quit and find something else just kept increasing. So if the pandemic really taught us anything, it was that we needed life after work, and that our mental and physical wellness was really our top priority. Approximately 4.3 million people quit their jobs in May of 2022. But if you look at the market from May to about last month, it's a lot different. Companies are starting to take control, and the Great Resignation seems to kind of be at a lull right now. A lot of people are still quitting their jobs to see if there's anything else or a new fun roller coaster to ride on, but it is starting to slow down. So we're finding that the looming recession, another R that we'll talk about later on today, workers want to feel a sense of security. They also want to see some of their friends and their families and their colleagues. And there's a lot of people that are currently being impacted by the reduction in force. So a lot of people leave because, like I said, higher pay, better benefits. But there are 5 employee personas that employers should recognize that could potentially lead to other people seeking employment. So we're going to go through those. So the 5 personas are the traditionalist, the do-it-yourselfers, the caregivers, the idealists, and the relaxers. So we're going to go through each of those 5 personas that employers kind of need to pay attention to, but you can also kind of equate them to some of the different generations that are in our workforce, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So some of the different generations in our workforce today, we still have a lot of baby boomers that are still in there. So if you were born in 1946 to 1964, that's you. Generation X, that's my generation, born 1965 to 1980. Millennials, 1981 to 1995. And then Gen Z, hard to say that we have a lot of Gen Zers starting to enter the workforce, 1996 to 2010. So these, again, are the 5 personas that employers should recognize. And so the first one is the traditionalist. So career-oriented workers, who are willing to make sacrifices if the price is right, they won't quit a job if they don't have another job lined up, but they will stay if they believe that they can be fairly compensated for their work. So the older generation, I put it in air quotes because I really don't feel old, like I said, but kind of the people around my age, we saw our parents work their way up through the corporate ladder. So, job hopping wasn't really in our vocabulary. So we don't really like being coined a job hopper. But we understand that there is a lot of sweat equity that needs to be involved if you want to get ahead. You have to pay the price if you want to play. But with this group, they're seeking a sense of security. They need to know that they can take care of their families. So that means something like a steady paycheck, having good benefits, retirement plans. They're really loyal to employers, but they will leave if the price is right. So this group was highly favored by employers, but if you don't know the warning signs, this group would also be one of the first to leave. So the next one is the do-it-yourselfers. So this group, it was the largest group of respondents in the study. And again, this is a McKinsey study that was done. So this is the majority of the, entry to mid-level, mid-career level candidates that we're seeing. So millennials were in there, sprinkled with a few Gen Xers. If you think about this type of group, this is the type that doesn't mind gig work. And what is gig work? That's, thinking about your Uber drivers, your DoorDash deliverers, people who like to pick up contracts or freelancing. They like to do that because they really don't want the commitment of having a full-time job. They're okay with working part-time. They want to be able to fit it in their schedule. Unlike the traditionalists, benefits are probably not as important right now at this stage of their life. So they're fine with taking part-time jobs just so long as it is flexible and they can do the job at their own pace. So if you come across someone who is kind of fitting in that category, if the current role that they're in doesn't suit them and they don't have that autonomy and flexibility, then more than likely that they would be one to leave. The next category is what they call the caregivers or others. So this group is really dedicated to helping their children and their parents. And as a result, they require a lot of flexibility when it comes to continuing to care for other people, but the pandemic, like I said earlier, really accelerated a lot of what's changing the landscape of the workforce. So if you think about, we were locked in together for almost 2 years, right? Baby boomers, they retired early, but now they're having to come back because now we have a lot of blended families. Kids were coming from college because their colleges were shut down and had to move back home. So children were coming back. We were taking online classes. Everyone was fighting for Zoom time. Had to learn how to cohabitate with each other. Elderly parents were getting pulled out of their home for better care so we can have a better eye on them. Childcare was kind of scarce as well. So just depending on the various shutdowns and regulations in whatever city you're from, you were impacted by that as well. Inflation, you know, that's like the key thing that we hear on the news all the time. We're actually seeing a combination of households that are coming together because, as you guys know, housing and food costs are increasing. Um, Everyone was kind of forced to stay at home. We had to learn how to become stay at home moms, stay at home dads, or just stay at home caregivers. So 18 to 44 is this category. More women than men. They chose to stay home and seek roles that would allow them to continue to have the same responsibilities of caregiving while balancing work. So this persona, they would look to quit and seek jobs that offered things like parental leave, flexible time off policies, different benefits like childcare or subsidized house cleaning services, mental health days. And a lot of people, or employers, I should say, are looking at ways to attract and retain this cohort of potential employees. So the next group are what they call the idealists. So the later Gen Zers, typically 18 to 24, they really want flexibility, a strong sense of organizational structure, a clear career advancement trajectory. They value belonging. So you hear a lot of the buzzwords, I need learning and development. I need a career path. I want to feel included. Diversity and inclusion are important to me. So there's not a lot around this type of persona that impacts career-oriented roles, but it did impact the retail, restaurant, and service industries because this type of group was a lot younger. So the relaxers. So this is the last of the 5 personas that McKinsey had identified as potentials to leave the workforce. So the relaxers are a group of people, usually retirees, that were not really looking to come back to work, but they will return to traditional work styles if the opportunity arises. So I mentioned earlier, the rise of things is increasing. A lot of people's pensions and retirement plans, because of what's going on in the economy today, have been greatly impacted. So a lot of the people who were retired are trying to come back, and whether that's take on part-time work or coming back full-time into the workforce. So there's a lot of baby boomers who considered finding something else, and they just needed a sense of balance. But the world opened up again, and we were fighting boredom. I was going stir crazy during the pandemic. I know even for my mom, who is a retired nurse and business owner, she was kind of even toying with the idea of, having some kind of supplemental income because things are more expensive than they were 2 to 3 years ago. I mentioned inflation, recession, the impacts of retirement benefits. Everything since the pandemic, retired workers are just starting to feel like we got to do something else. So you'll find that the relaxers are another thing that's impacting the workforce today. So the survey showed that for all personas that were listed, that uncaring and uninspiring leaders were a part of why people left their jobs, along with the lack of career development and Flexibility, on the other hand, is a top motivator and a reason for staying. So you're going to find that theme throughout different organizations. But the Great Resignation was just a start. That was that upward climb on that roller coaster. So what happens after that? I call it the Great Reshuffle. So depending on where you're looking online, Great Reshuffle, Great Restructure, they kind of blend together. But the Great Reshuffle, to me, was kind of like that downward, I guess, spiral, if you will, on a roller coaster. So this had a lot of companies kind of thinking, what are we going to have to do next? Everyone's quitting. We have a lot of open jobs. What are we going to do to get people in those seats? So a lot of people were quitting. So that left a lot of gaps in the organization. People had to reshuffle employee duties and responsibilities. And then others that were left on the team that stayed had to kind of learn other roles that they probably were never introduced to before. So there was a lot of like moving parts and pieces within organizations. A lot of companies had to learn to work smarter, not harder, because their teams were lean. They learned what positions were essential and what positions were not. They also discovered, we probably have a lot of inefficiencies when it comes to the different roles that we had. So a lot of different positions became eliminated, and then a lot of roles kind of combined, and people were able to get promoted, which caused a lot of great internal mobility. They were able to keep employees on because they had promotions, they had added responsibilities that they didn't before. But I also wanted to, caution on what also happens when you add additional work to people. So that strain on the workload that led to the Great Resignation, companies also had to reshuffle how they attract, select, and retain their employees. So there was a lot of different things going on. For the 2 years, starting in March of 2020, when the world kind of came to a pause, companies were not really employee centric. So a lot of the training and development that was supposed to happen over 2 years kind of went away because they didn't have the resources or the budget available. So people were having to, move around, learn how to do more with less. They changed the way that they did business. And again, that's part of the rock and roller coaster ride, which led to what I call the Great Reshuffle. I'm sorry, the Great Restructure. So if you've been on a roller coaster, when you go down that dark tunnel, you're not quite sure what's on the other side, and you kind of get excited of what's ahead. So you got shuffled around earlier, and then you have to figure out, what is at the end of this ride. So that's why this slide is up here. Companies found that this was a time that they should rebuild and restructure. So they've had to figure out what was going to be the best way to retain their employees. So the next phase was what I'm calling the Great Restructure. And you probably won't find too much on that because I think I kind of blended the terms together. But this was the next phase. So companies recognized that in order to retain their top performers and attract new employees, they had to kind of modify the way that they were doing business. So they had to consider things like their benefits, their time off policies, work from home options, and work schedules. You've probably heard of a lot of companies lately trying to experiment with 4-day work weeks and doing more hybrid work environments. A lot of people had to pay more. Quite simply, if you wanted to attract the right people and then offer more wellness benefits. So companies had to raise their base pay all across the board. They were hiring job seekers at a much higher premium than they did in years past. So that change, it comes with a lot of positive and negative consequences, though, because if you think about all of these things that people were implementing, it comes with a price. I mean, someone has to pay for the increase in benefits and the increase in salaries. So there were, again, more layoffs, a lot of reductions in force, a lot of positions that were being eliminated. And you keep hearing this right now. A lot of people are rescinding job offers because with all of this change, money and it impacts the bottom line. So, the bigger companies, you keep seeing those on the news every day. I know Twitter is about to lay off even more on their workforce. But what really hurt the most was small business. And part of what I do help consult with small to mid-sized organizations that were impacted the most because they didn't have the big clients. They didn't have the big budget that most of these big organizations had. So it hurt small business the most. And they learned that they had to either turn a profit or just die trying. So, with high interest rates, increased salaries and benefits, consumer spending kind of at a lull, and inflation, it all had a negative impact on the bottom line. So, unfortunately, all of the different waves of this roller coaster are starting to collide, and we are seeing another massive shift in the economy and in the workplace. So I mentioned Twitter earlier. So, I took a look the other day at, just about what companies are actually going through different rounds of layoffs right now. So these are names that you and I know and love. Twitter, actually, when I put this slide together, it was 25%. I think I turned on the news this morning. It's actually closer to 45% will be impacted. Peloton, about 4,600 people. Gap, 500 people. The list goes on and on. 7-Eleven, 900 folks. Tesla, Netflix, Compass, Coinbase, Carvana, Reef Technology, and Reef Kitchens, which actually, if you look at my profile, I actually worked for Reef Technology and Reef Kitchens. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues and people who were on my team go through at least 7 or 8 different reductions in force. So it's coming, and unfortunately, a lot of things had to change during this time, and we were throwing in a lot of time and resources to try to attract talent. But again, it came with a price, and now we're seeing it happen across the board with all of these larger organizations. So the next loop in the roller coaster is what is termed the great regret. So this symbolizes the sentiment that employees and companies are feeling right now because they are now suffering from buyer's remorse. So employees, a lot of employees realized, okay, I quit my job, and you know what? The grass probably wasn't greener on the other side. They wanted to work for these big tech brands. And you saw on the previous slide some of those big brands that everyone jumped ship to go to because they had big budgets to throw money at are now laying people off. So, people are realizing that that probably was not the best move. So again, you're seeing a lot of layoffs, tons of hiring freezes. I know a few companies that have been rescinding offers. Unfortunately, a lot of people feel like they were falsely advertised to. They were told you're going to get a lot of training. There's tons of opportunity here, and then when they get into the role, 30, 60 days, 90 days, they're not really getting what they were told. And so, why did they even leave? So everyone questions, why did I leave? It's the same drama. It's the same management style than what I left. And so they kind of feel like they just kind of got that temporary satisfaction, that buzz that you get when you get more money, get more benefits, more time off. But that was just a temporary feeling. So I kind of equate that to that feeling that you get when you're on that roller coaster before it's about to take off. But where it also impacted employers is they're having regret too. So they have a lot of jobs open, and they started to get a little desperate on filling jobs. You probably saw a lot of people who were throwing sign-on bonuses, crazy like vacations. If you come join our company, we'll let you work from home. We'll give you a car. I mean, people were doing some crazy things to fill their opportunities, just to fill the seats. But by doing that, they also allowed their hiring standards to kind of fall short. So they were throwing different perks out there. They were paying a lot more for employees that probably were worth a little less, to be honest. So companies, are successful because they know how to run the business, but they allowed employees to kind of dictate how to run the business, and then their profits suffered. So their work structures have changed. Oh, so the Muse.com, they surveyed about 2,500 people, and 72% of those workers experienced surprise or regret that the new position or company they went to turned out to be very different from what they were led to believe. And then 48% said that they really wanted their old job back. So many people left their jobs without having a new job lined up because at the time the job market was really hot. And now they're finding out that probably wasn't the best thing to do because actually it has been extremely difficult finding a job, even though I keep seeing a lot of people posting for opportunities. So now you have to think about all of the other people now that are who have been laid off, um, who are also fighting for the same opportunities. So given that there, regret is something that people are experiencing right now for leaving the jobs that they were once familiar with. So we call that boomerang hiring. So if you haven't heard that term before, we call those boomerang hires. So what is a boomerang hire or a boomerang employee? Maybe you're a boomerang employee. So employees who want their old jobs back, they realize that they had a decision to make to leave their old job, whether it was because of pay, benefits, flexibility, whatever it is. But they miss their workplace culture. They miss their work friends. They miss that sense of feeling like they belong. And then they had to go to this new company. They were really excited to go there. And then they realized, oh, this is just like starting school all over again. I need a seat at the lunch table and nobody is inviting me over. I need to learn where everything is. I have to prove myself. So they start realizing that, you know what, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Because now I have to start over. And that employer that I just left, they know what I'm worth. So they're kind of feeling that, they had their work friends, their work family, you had your work wife, your work husband, whatever it is. But that workplace culture was something that was familiar to you. And if you get to come back, hopefully you get to start with a fresh slate. And companies are kind of open right now to hiring their old workers because if they left in good standing, they know that there is no downtime to onboard and train. And if they're coming back to the same role, then they're familiar with it and they're accustomed to the culture and they can easily assimilate and adapt. So the next R is the recession. So I know a lot of people don't like to hear that term, but think about the higher price of goods. We talked about how that impacted the last 2 or 3 years. Higher price of goods, the cost to travel to and from work. That's again why people are kind of looking at alternatives to coming into the office. But a lot of companies, as you know, are now taking control back, making their employees come back into the office, even if it is just for a few days during the week. But to travel to and from work, gas is expensive. It's hard to find cars right now. So there's more people on the job market and they're not working. So what does that mean? It also means that they're not contributing to buying, which also has negative impacts on the economy. More baby boomers, like I said earlier, are coming out of retirement. And the cost of childcare, elderly care, people are having to stay at home because of the increase in healthcare. And so all of that has a trickle down effect for job seekers. So, what does that mean? Think about what you want and what you need from your next job. Understand that everything I mentioned impacts how companies operate and the different initiatives that they may have in place in order for them to turn profit. The largest cost to an organization is headcount. So if you think about, you are an additional spend for that employer. So think about that before you jump in and out of a new role. If you feel like your job is secure, then what can you do to maximize your potential to get seen, to get noticed, to get promoted so that you can love your job again? So I know there's probably some questions. If you have questions, make sure you drop it in the chat. I want to make sure I thank you guys for joining. If you want to take I guess, scan that QR code. It will take you to all my links. I am giving away a LinkedIn profile review, and I have some awesome podcast stickers you can slap on your computers if you would like one. But if there's anything that I can help you with, I also offer free advice on my podcast. So I would love if you guys gave it a listen. But I think, Jordana, that is all I have left. But I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And I hope that you learned something new today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was so interesting. I found that fascinating, but I've been wanting to hear this talk for a year now. So thank you so much, Jessica, for putting that together and for sharing your expertise with us. We've got about 20 minutes till the next session. I know we're just like flying through this stuff today. Y'all keep up, hydrate, eat a snack, and in between, I know I mentioned this, I've only had 2 people take us up on it. Go ahead and take a picture of your behind the scenes. Share it on LinkedIn, tag the Recon Network, tag me, and whoever, we will have a lottery of whoever participates at the end of tomorrow. And there may or may not be a $100 Amazon gift card in it for you. So definitely want to play along. And if nothing else, it's just good fun. So Jessica, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your help with this event and appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.